What's going on, everybody? Isaac here with Civil Engineering Academy. Thank you for joining us on another podcast episode. If you haven't liked or subscribed to us, make sure you are doing that. And we love to read your comments if you are leaving those on these podcast episodes. Today, I bring a fun guest on, Sam LaMontanaro. He is with Aufgang, which is an architect and an engineering firm in New York City. And I bring him on to talk about all things sustainability. We touch upon regulations that are going on in New York, where they have to electrify everything and get rid of fossil fuel appliances and things of that nature. Sounds a little bit of a headache, but that's the things they got to deal with and really put their thinking caps on how to design buildings that way. Also water storage. We also touch on being a mentor and the value of a PE license. Anyway, it's a lot of information, but I think it's all very helpful for you to help you on your own journey to become a professional engineer even after. It's good stuff. So anyway, give Sam a like. Make sure to check him out. Check out their website, Aufgang, that will link in the show notes, and I think you're really going to enjoy this episode. So my conversation with Sam is going to be coming up right after this. We'll see you in a minute. Hey, I wanted to jump on real quick and let you know about a free resource we've developed for you. You can find it at civilengineeringacademy.com/PE guide, and this will help you to jumpstart your studies for your PE exam. So if you're in the hunt and you're just thinking about the PE exam, this guide will help you get through the process of figuring out everything you need to do, from the PE exam's prerequisites that you got to figure out, the must-have materials that you're going to need for the exam, any approved calculators, what groups you should join, exam secrets, and much more. It's all in this guide that we've got developed for you. It's completely free. You can go check it out at civilengineeringacademy.com/PE guide. Just put in your email. We'll get you that information as soon as the email comes to your inbox. So go check it out, civilengineeringacademy.com/PE guide. All right, we are live and running. Sam, thanks for joining me on the Civil Engineering Academy podcast.
Thank you, Isaac. I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. I know we kind of connected maybe over LinkedIn. I've had some of my team reach out to you, but I always really love to start these kind of, I guess, chats, just kind of knowing your own background, how you found yourself at the employer that you're at, and how you found yourself into engineering. I do know you're mechanical, but you do touch a lot in the civil world. So maybe touch on your background, how you found yourself where you're at.
Sure. So, I started off family plumbing company, mid-sized plumbing company. So I grew up, kind of on job sites. I was lucky in that the size of the firm that my father owned, we had excavators and backhoes. So I was able to play with all those things and really get a great education, always be on a site. So I was looking at ductwork going in. I was watching it site work and doing underground piping. So that's kind of how I grew up, and I always had a real interest in it. I love taking things apart, and I always loved working with my father, and then later working for his company as a plumber before school. But from a young age, my father always, he always said, I want you to work smarter, not harder. Engineering was really a clear choice ever since I was a little kid. So, and then, I went to school, and it's nice that in my designs, I have like a practical sense of what we're doing, because I've seen the installation, and, I used to do the installation. And then, I worked first in the power industry. Many years ago, I used to design power plants. And then I moved into the New York City market at an engineering firm where I was there for 20 years. And then I came over to Aufgang. Aufgang Architecture, I had been working with them, on many, many projects for, probably 15 to 20 years. And I knew I needed some type of a change. And I sat down with the owner, Ariel, and, we decided, hey, let's do something with, in New York and across the country. There's electrification, there's conservation of resources. And, they were talking internally already to come up with a division that could do some consulting and advisory for clients on how to save energy, how to promote, green buildings, electrification. And it was just a simple little marriage. We shook hands, and I've been here now nearly 2 years.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, that's a great story.
Yeah.
And so I think we mentioned this earlier, but did you grow up in the West Coast and now you're in New York, or
No, I grew up in New York. I was born in New York. I grew up in New York with just a short stint out west. I have been in New York the entire time. I grew up upstate New York, about 50 minutes outside of Manhattan. So we've always had close ties. And even to my whole family, my father's father, he was, he built high-rise buildings. He was a super, he worked for the Trump organization for many years. So as a kid, I was able to go out on these big, tall buildings. So, it was great being on the East Coast in New York with, these type of buildings and projects.
Man, that's awesome. You definitely should have been a civil engineer. Well, can you give us a little bit of the history of the company that you're with, Aufgang, and what kind of the scope of things they provide and do?
Sure. So we're, a mid-size firm. We've got about 50 architects here, great support staff, but we have divisions for planning and community development, rehabilitation and preservation divisions. I'm in we call it the Building Systems Advisory Unit. We have separate divisions for construction administration. So we try to kind of do all aspects of, the architecture, but, right now, the big thing, especially in New York City, it's a lot of renovations for our preservation division and rehab division. They're, real busy. But, we do, it can be we do mostly residential, high-rise residential, commercial buildings, but we're a real diversified company. And now, on the engineering side, we bring the engineering in, and we kind of integrate that now on some of the projects where we're doing A&E, and then we still have our construction administration.
That's awesome. So it's primarily an architect firm, if I understand that right. But you are the director of engineering. How do those two play a role with each other?
Well, I'll tell you, since we've been here, we're picking up more of the engineering design now. So we used to call ourselves Aufgang Architects. Now the name of the company is just Aufgang. So now it's just that umbrella that has architecture and engineering. It's real interesting. I always worked outside at just a straight engineering firm, and, that integration with the architect. Now we're all under one roof. We're not phone calling, back and forth and emailing each other. Now I walk from desk to desk, and, and now as they're designing a building, I sit down with them and we talk about mechanical rooms and what we're going to do. And, so we have that collaboration early on, before we kind of attack it with mechanical systems. And it's real helpful. It's great to be under the same roof where we can kind of collaboratively come up with the floor plans, and, at least in the mechanical areas, and, make sure we have shafts going through buildings, and we kind of account for everything. But it's a great marriage. I've loved it so far.
That's awesome. I always hear stories that engineers and architects sometimes don't get along, but it sounds like when you have it all in the same room, maybe that's not the case.
Well, I'll be honest. Sometimes it can get a little contentious. Growing up in just on the engineering side, where we're fighting to get mechanical rooms, and the architect's thinking about, rentable space and, that occupiable floor plan. And I just want a big, luxurious boiler room. And you got to find that marriage. Now that you're under the same roof, you kind of, you got to make those concessions back and forth. But, truth be told, I understand some of their, some of what they're up against now, probably a little bit better, and so it's been interesting. It's been fun.
That's awesome. Have you noticed, I guess in your particular role, you probably have a bird's eye view of some of the issues that come up? Maybe that was one of them, issues that come up between engineers and architects. But are there any other particular challenges that you see in your role that you've encountered?
As far as challenges with the integration between architecture and engineering, or?
Yeah, it could be related to those two, or just the job in general, or challenges with projects.
I mean, some of the challenges, right now, a very big challenge that we have and I think all markets have it. Here in New York City, we are trying to electrify the city. So building systems are trying to go all electric, and we're trying to pull out the fossil fuels from the design. And that means envelopes have to get substantially better. Windows have to get better. Wall assemblies have to get better. We're trying to use less water, less energy across the board. And that's been a real big challenge, because it's, you're balancing design and cost now. You're a little bit more conscientious of cost because so much more now goes into the building, and not, the building systems are what they are, the mechanical systems. But in order to make those systems work, you need that better envelope around. But there's only so much that you can do to budgetary constraints. So it's finding that marriage right now while we're trying to do the electrification. That's been challenging.
I know New York has been pretty progressive on the electrification side of things and getting rid of, even stuff that uses any fossil fuels at all. But, is that set in stone, put in place? I'm not aware where that goal at.
New York City has, they've implemented, it's called Law 197 here in New York. And this law, which it comes into full effect in 2025, where they start handing out fines if you work over a specific carbon footprint. So, and then incrementally, every so many years, your carbon footprint has to get reduced a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, until we're carbon neutral by 2050. So the fines start going out in 2025. So we are, in buildings that we're doing now, we're trying to plan, for those, to meet that criteria, now. And, some of the standard is not 100% set in stone, how certain things are going to be, fines are going to be levied, how you're going to be able to have some carbon offsets. So it's an interesting time, but everybody's scrambling to try to get natural gas out of their buildings and just get it, fully electrified.
Man, sometimes I think about that. I have a hard time with that. I work in the utility world as well, and it seems like the utility, the grid itself is already strained with what's happening with everything else going on. So
that's what I worry about. We have rolling brownouts all the time, and it's one thing to have it during the summer months. Air conditioning systems have, there's efficiencies. When we get to a certain temperature, when we, on the heating side with heat pumps, where they go to a COP of 1, and, it's 1 unit of electric in, 1 unit of heat out. When we get to the colder temperatures, because of the derating of the machines, we're going to get those brownouts again. And, you get the brownouts when we're in a 2-week cold snap. That's a bit scary. I've seen problems with infrastructure for years and years, with the utilities here, and it's, sometimes I think it's going a little too fast. I love technology. I have solar panels in my house. I've got heat pump water heaters. I love the technology, but sometimes, it's kind of good to take a step back, because I don't, the infrastructure I'm really worried about,
Yeah. And I think it's good to be diverse too. I think, it's back to putting all those eggs in one basket. When something goes wrong, you're in a world of hurt. So
yeah, there's the projects where I wanted to have a standby boiler to do some injection into a system, just in case, when equipment derates, or I have a problem, we have a brownout, or I have that gas fired boiler to fall back on. But with a lot of these regulations, they don't want you even putting them in, even if it's not for primary use. So it's been challenging. And, I think at some point, they're going to have discussions, and you got to take a little bit more of a practical approach. We understand this is where we want to be, but in order to get there, we kind of have to take some incremental footsteps. In New York, we kind of want to take one big leap, it seems, into these technologies, which we'll get there eventually, but we're not quite there yet. We're trying.
That makes sense. Well, you are a leader in the role that you have. I always like to ask those with leadership skills, but how do you go about or what's your approach to mentoring younger engineers? Do you have any tips around that?
I will tell you, that is one of my most favorite things to do. My intern, when he went back to school, I was nearly in tears. Um, I love taking, through the years, I had so many either just getting out of college or interns. Um, you know, I think it's essential. I love taking them down to the field and walk from building after building after building. It's great to see what we're doing because I find, and my own education included, um, there's really no practical saying, no practical classes that at least I know I took. Everything was, lots of formulas and stuff, but no real practical sense of what you were doing, practical applications. I was fortunate that I had a construction background, but I think a lot of engineers coming out of school, lots of book smarts, but it's good to go down into a field and see those things in a practical sense. Pipes and drains and manholes and, boilers and all those pieces of equipment, you realize they have size. You see them on a drawing, it's a box, but when you see it in the real world, kind of changes how you want to design something. So that is crucial. To get interns down to the field, let them see those systems, and then, it's really training wheels off, let them get on a computer, show them what you want, and let them start drawing. Take them back to the field, let them see kind of what they did. And, I love I love interns and I love kids out of college. I always have. And I just love getting them all that, everything that I know. I'm not trying to hoard anything that I know. So it's getting that practical education in the field, I think is probably the most important.
Yeah, I love that you hit that. A lot of times you're sitting at a desk designing something, but until you get out in the real world and see how stuff fits or what's really in the way, all of that jazz, that helps.
This old company I was at, it was like one of the first week or two I was there. I was sitting down with one of the designer at this company. We had engineers and then we had draft people. And I was sitting down with a woman that she's an engineer, but her role was a draft person. And I saw how she is drawing simple thing like baseboard. And she is drawing two cyan lines around, and the way she was drawing it just didn't make sense. And I asked her, I said, "Do you know exactly what you're drawing right now?" And she says, "No, it's just two cyan lines 6 inches apart." And I said, "Look down to your left. That's what you're drawing. That's the piece of baseboard." And she had no idea. So it's trying to, if someone took her to the field or explain those things to her, she would have a much better sense of how to draw and that understanding. So that's that practical side. It's good to know what you're drawing, so it's good to get it out to the field.
Oh, yes. Well, I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's crucial for young engineers to do. So hopefully anyone listening, you'll get out there in the field and check things out. I wanted to touch a little bit. Maybe we've already talked about this with regulations and stuff, but a little bit about sustainability. Like, what are you seeing in your role in regards to sustainability? Do you see any new technologies? Do you, I guess, what's your approach to it?
Right now, what we're seeing, we'll go on the mechanical side first. We're doing a lot of unitary systems with variable refrigerant flow, but they're taking that technology and kind of repackaging it into, different machines. It could be through wall PTAS systems that now are packaged with, variable refrigerant flow. They have some split units with a small air handler with a variable refrigerant flow it's like a retrofit through, an AC sleeve. You're seeing so many different types of hot water heaters or, refrigerated electrical based heat pumps, boiler systems. We're doing split systems which have air side and water side, on the electrification system. So every day we're seeing, a different packaging of that same technology, where, again, everything's electrified and they're just trying to take those heat pump technologies and kind of rebrand them and put packages together that might have, energy recovery units with the condensers and the air handlers. And, it's interesting, trying to keep up with everything that they're doing, but we're trying to find, just more and more ways to get to that endpoint of the carbon neutral. Same with, water fixtures, we're trying to get everything, much more efficient fixtures using a lot less flow, and then next smaller pipe sizes. We get into, outside drainage where we are trying to retain as much water on sites and not give, water back into either combined systems. In New York City, we have mostly combined sewer systems. So, when the rains come, flows in these systems can go up by a factor of 10. So, we're trying to greatly limit the amount of water that we're outflowing from the site. So, detention systems are getting substantially bigger, control flow, different kinds of control flow roof drains, and different ways, different types of grid, be they purple roof systems. And, in New York City, we also have some other local laws with that talk about green roofs, where you have to have either solar or green roof. So all these different structural elements to try to reduce outflow. The sites are getting challenging when you're trying to get detention systems and detention tanks inside high-rise buildings that are property line, and you've got no property, so you try to shoehorn these things in and get very low outflows from these buildings from great events. That's been a challenge.
Wow, there's a lot there to unpack, I think, with sustainability, and it seems like you're in New York, you're kind of hitting all the big issues at once.
I'm a mechanical engineer, but here in New York City, we have to deal with the Department of Environmental Protection, New York City, and water outflow is a real big thing, and the fact that we are allowing outflows are so small, the roof detention becomes critical. And then in series now, we typically will have a tank in series with our roof detention. So we're trying to come up with all these ways to shoehorn these things in high-rise buildings.
Wow.
The space inside is such a premium. And nobody wants to hear that you want this big monstrous tank, taking rentable square footage. So that's challenging as well. That's been a challenge for a few years now, as New York keeps lowering the allowable outflow within the city.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you're full of challenges over there. I think you can get solutions, but it sounds like everyone's got to put on a thinking cap to really address all of those issues. I'm impressed with what you're doing. I wanted to touch a little bit on where do you see the value of earning your professional engineering license, and how has that helped you?
Okay, it's interestingly enough, prior to having my license, I don't know that I have wanted it, but I don't know that I valued it as much. Where I was I do this every day. Everybody knows it's not going to make me any smarter. And the second I got my license, I think everything changed. The way I looked at drawings, a sense of pride. You slowly dive into the code more, because now you're thinking, as a professional engineer, you're thinking about liability. You're thinking just, a lot. I mean, the second you get it, your thought process changes. I think it is absolutely, it is necessary. You're not the same with it or without it. That one day change when you find out you are now licensed, I think it changes the whole calculus. You look at things just from a more worldly perspective, as opposed to sometimes if you're just a little bit, focused on here, you kind of look at it in a more broad arena, how it's, interacts with other things. And I think it's, the development of any professional, I think it is absolutely necessary. It escalates you to a different level.
That's awesome. Well, we're definitely in the business of helping people on that journey. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that and how it's helped you in your own career and life. But it sounds like
definitely different. it's great to walk into a meeting. The first time you get to walk into a meeting and you get to put down that card and it has a PE at the end, it's a good sense of pride, so from that aspect, that's real good. That's cool.
Love it. Well, Sam, this has been really fun. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on dealing with sustainability? It sounds like regulations or anything else that's on your mind, even the company you work for that you'd like to share.
I would tell you, this company, through our planning and community development division and the collaboration between the architects and the engineers, I think we're one of those companies that are really trying to find real solutions, come up with designs that are affordable and buildable. You can come up with any design, but if nobody can afford to build it, there is that marriage, and we've got a real diverse, smart team of people, trying to come up with these practical designs that are highly efficient, operate and, cost savings. So I'm super happy. This has been a great transition for me in my own professional career. But a firm that honestly, I have to say, like, they honestly care, about society, their thoughtfulness. So, that's the thing. You've got to have people around you that strive to improve these designs, keep up with these new technologies that we have, and, on YouTube, do some reading, it all helps.
Awesome. Well, we're going to go ahead and link Aufgang on there. Make sure people are aware of everything that you have going on. If anybody had questions either about the company or sustainability or things that you have going on in New York, is there a good way for our audience to reach out to you?
If you're going to put the link in, my email, my contact information is there. I'm more than happy to speak with anybody. If it's a young engineer coming up, to give any type of advice, or, if I could ever be helpful, or if it's someone coming out of college, looking for a career, use people as I found through the years, as you meet people and you gain resources, there's a lot of people out there that are, willing and able to, to guide and help assist you in whatever career path you're taking. So take advantage of those things. I personally, I love to talk to young engineers or, and call them out on their journey. So the link would be there, and my contact information would be on Aufgang's site.
Awesome. Okay. We'll go ahead and link that. Sam, thanks so much for doing this and taking the time to meet with me and chat about all things that we just did. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
All right. Thank you. See ya.
Thank you very much.